how I do in this. This was my first time playing the game. This was my first time playing the game since I've played 2022. So yeah, this is me jumping in and kind of having a look, basically. So you can see here we've got a couple of options so far. We're going to be adding new race replays to the game following every race weekend. So this will be updated, as you can see. So this is where we are right now, obviously on this particular build. And this is me jumping into Miami. So we do have a couple of options here. We've got the race moment and the starting grid, but for now we're going to play the starting grid. Yeah, we've got 57 laps to try and prove ourselves better than an actual F1 team. Ferrari, you know, they were. I chose this one because I don't know if you guys watched the race, but there was a bit of a battle between Alpine and Ferrari for this one for a while. So I thought, you know what? I can gap an Alpine and a Ferrari. I can do the strategy here that makes sure that Alpine aren't behind me.
Well, those are bold words. We'll see if
they are bold words.
You've got the skills to back them up.
And like I said, I'm interested to see if chat can predict basically whether I'm going to have done this any good or not.
So yeah, the starting grid is about to start. While that loads up, I want to ask, what was the inspiration or idea behind adding this whole new mode? Was it that you wanted to explore different ways to enjoy and play F1? I know partly it's about tying the gameplay to the real season as well. Was that something you wanted to achieve with this?
Yeah, so essentially, we've heard obviously community feedback in various areas of the game. One of the key things was that we wanted to allow people to jump straight into the action. You know, with these particular race grids here, you can choose any team. So, you know, you can choose any team you want for that circuit and just jump in, get straight into the action. And it also means that you can have that sort of the close match with the real world Formula One results and the races that are occurring well, not each weekend, but you know, on race weekends.
Sure.
And so I think that what this gives you is that nice connection between the game and the real world as it happens, basically.
Definitely.
And it gives you a chance to, you know, prove to your mates that you can do better than the team principles.
Or not, as we may find out as this goes through. Do you know what? I'm probably being a bit harsh on myself. I don't think I did that badly here, but you can see me here. I'm selecting strategies. So you don't start with strategies. It's your choice for the strategy for this. So starting grid just gives you where those drivers qualified, and it gives you track conditions and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's up to you to decide your own strategy, whether you do decide to do, you know, start on the tyres that they really did start on there. But I set up for 2 mediums were here, but I did extend Carlos's stint a little bit. So he's running a little bit longer on his mediums because he's a little bit higher up the grid. So I thought, let's try and keep Sainz on the podium. Do I do it? I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see as we get into this. But off we go. We're going to be showing a couple of other things here as well. We're going to be talking about some new features and stuff whilst this plays, because we're going to be seeing some new stuff here. I am very, very keen on something that people may have seen in the trailer, which is the visor cam. I am obsessed with this. I had to keep turning it off because I would watch an entire race in visor cam, just as I would in an F1 in real life. Like if I had the ability to click through all the driver cams, which I think you can on F1 TV, but I don't have that ability. So I would love to watch every single race from visor cam, and I think that's a really, really cool thing. So we're going to see that in a minute as well, because I think I obsessively switch back and forth between that when things get exciting.
It does look incredible. I'm a big fan of the new visor cam as well.
Yeah, the team have done a really, really good job on that. It's one of those things that, you know, as fans of F1, we thought, well, as soon as we saw it, we knew we had to have this, right? This is, you know, this really cool thing to have in, and each of the teams, each of the drivers actually has obviously different visors.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was switching through. Yeah, because I'm guessing that's based on, you know, the real life fact that they use different visors, and there's also, you know, there's different ones for. I know in real life they change them based on where the sun is and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And it kind of recreates that same feeling of drivers having their own personal choice, which is really cool. Yeah, I'm obsessed with that. Completely obsessed.
I got the opportunity to peek over Steve's shoulder while he was playing as well, and I noticed that the details on the steering wheel as well, things like the gears and the speeds, are all updating in real time as well, according to the driver and what they're doing. So really nice attention to detail there that I greatly enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what actually is really cool about that is when you have, for example, a night circuit especially, if you're in visor cam, you get the reflections from the rev counter on the steering wheel. You know, it just reflects into the visor. As you know, it's not quite fully clean. You know, there's just nice little details like that that really make it look authentic and really get you into the action.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. So already here we can see that I'm like what 1.4 seconds behind Alonso there. So I'm sitting pretty. But look again, Alpine behind. I'm still already. I thought, yeah, I'll be fine. I'll just start better, and then I won't have Alpines battling for my positions. But unfortunately, I already do have Gasly on my tail. But yeah, we've just got it coming back here. Got a bit here. We're already in the DRS zones now as well. So whether I'll have any success, we'll see. But I'm burning the tyres. So the tyre temperature is something that we've worked on for 2023, isn't it, Lloyd? So here I'm basically taking my own risk of just being like, yep, push it, burn the tyres as much as possible. But can you give us a little bit of info on sort of how tyre management is going to be looking for 23?
Yeah, so as you say, currently you're pushing quite a bit on these tyres, obviously on the mediums there. And what you'll find is that in this game, you've got to really pay attention to the tyre temperatures because we simulate the carcass and the surface temperature. And if you keep pushing, especially on hot tracks, you're going to find that they'll open fairly quickly, depending on. There you go.
I love it. I love it so much. Sorry.
Depending on the compound used, obviously,
yeah.
Different compounds react differently to different circuits, and even then you've got the compounds change themselves depending on the circuit. Obviously, you know what you see as a hard isn't necessarily the same.
Yeah,
on
of
each
course.
Circuit. And you really have to think carefully about where you are, what the track temperature is, how hard you're pushing, whether you've just changed your tyres in the pits. Obviously, if you're on a fresh set of tyres, they're not going to be as warmed up and bedded in as a set that's been running for a few laps. And obviously, we'll communicate back to you how your tyres are doing. You can see there on the command panels, you've got the temperatures rising, and they'll start to go red once they reach that temperature zone that's a little bit too warm. And you know, it all ties in together with all the other systems as well. So there's lots of things you can really put into this. And I mean, Will, you've worked very closely on this, right?
Yeah, I think it's actually quite a good example right now of where you're pushing on with Sainz and with Leclerc. But Leclerc's tyres are hotter than Sainz, as you saw. Like they went red a minute ago because they were starting to overheat. It's because we're taking into account things like dirty air as well. So for Sainz, he's got a decent gap in front of him, so he's not getting much dirty air off Alonso ahead. Whereas Leclerc, who's in the pack right behind Magnussen, that's affecting his tyres as well. So you have to think about that. Maybe, you know, if you're not pushing to overtake, then maybe you need to conserve a bit more. Because yeah, you'll start to overheat the tyres potentially, and then obviously the tyres will degrade faster, and you might have to either pit earlier or even do an extra stop. You know, if you're not keeping tabs on that stuff. So it's quite a good example.
I could have known with knowing that before I recorded this because I do get through the tyres quite. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm not very good at managing tyres.
You're going to burn through them, aren't you?
I am, yeah. And a couple of people have pointed out in chat here, we've got a brand new map for this as well. So when you, if you've not played F1 Manager before, something that helps you get through, you know, even though we've got this new faster game mode where you can jump in and just do a race and you're not committed to a career, you can still speed up the progress. You can speed it right up to 16 times, and like we're doing here, we're at 8 times. Brand new map. We've made this look, you know, it's got the greenery on it. It's a little bit more realistic. Yep. We've got that beautiful, very realistic marina at Miami that we are recreating. In fact, it's basically the same image, isn't it? It's effectively the same as it is in real life there. But yeah, we've got this new map, which I think helps you kind of just see where you are a little bit better on the track, right? Like it helps you position. It's certainly helped me position for where safety cars were and where the safety car was coming out.
So actually there's a few things you might not have realised have gone into this as well. So we've made some little tweaks to the 3D map, not only visually, which is really obvious, but when you're following your drivers around the circuit, we've made sure that those will appear on top of the other drivers so they won't get lost in the pack.
Okay.
If you're focusing on a particular one, that's going to appear slightly differently as well. Any cars that retire are no longer visible in the pits because obviously they're not moving, so you don't really need to see them. There's lots of little things like that have gone into these. So initially on the surface, they look like new visuals, but there's lots of other things that have gone into this to make it better for you, better user experience.
Yeah, all those little changes I think make a nice, and like you said, like that was something that I hadn't even noticed when I was playing it the first time. But yeah, it made it so much clearer for me when, you know, especially around the safety car and stuff, just made it so much easier to plot out where I should be and that kind of thing. Yeah, we're going through Miami here. An overcast Miami, I will say. There's no rain prediction really. We've got a loose prediction of a 5% chance of rain, but a bit of an overcast Miami. Sainz is now just in a little world of his own with Russell behind him. Leclerc obviously having a bit of the same thing with Kevin Magnussen as well, which I think we'll see that battle heat up at some point. But Russell absolutely intent on getting past me, so we're keeping the keeping the pace up a little bit, even though the tyres are a little bit burnt.
So going into this, what strategy did you want to put into it that was going to be different from the standard strategy that was used by Ferrari before?
That's a very brave question.
Did you
to
make
ask me, Bruce.
so you made? I saw at the beginning you were playing around with the
Yes.
pitting strategy. Did you change the lap or?
I did, yeah. So what I did was effectively. So what you can do within the game is effectively choose how long your stint is going to be. So I left Leclerc on the. There we go. Leclerc and Magnussen are battling back and forth there now whilst we speed it up. But I left Leclerc on the basic, the stint it recommended for. We give you like 3 presets, and I left it on the basic A preset for that. But because Sainz was a little bit up the order, I didn't want to risk him pitting too soon and losing that podium track position. So I thought, yeah, we'll leave Sainz out for a little bit longer. This is a tight street circuit, as many F1 people know, that a tight street circuit with 20 cars going around it is going to be quite an interesting thing, especially when there's 57 laps. So whether we do all of those laps and my pit strategy works out or not is a different matter, which I think we'll find out fairly shortly. But yeah, for the time being, this strategy is working. This is what I wanted. You know, the gaps aren't too bad. Perez is leading. You'll see Verstappen has flown up so many places. He's got the fastest lap,
as he's often wants to do.
Yes, that seems to be the trend for 2023 so far, doesn't it? And yeah, that seems to be what's happening here as well. Somebody said, any mouse support for PS5, gents? Mr. Rich, yes, we have mouse and keyboard support for consoles. That is something that has been added to 23, isn't it?
Yeah, new feature. You can just pop keyboard and mouse in.
Plug it in, yeah, just plug it in and do it. Not that I think I think we actually got a lot of feedback that the controls for the consoles were actually really well received. There was a lot of people that were quite pleased with those controls, but a lot of people prefer a mouse and keyboard. I'm a mouse and keyboard person. I'm a PC gamer. So yeah, absolutely. We now have the ability to control it with a keyboard and mouse on your console. Will there be mid-session saves? Yes, there will be mid-session saves. Yes, there will. You can, again, I think part of the ability to just make it a bit more jump in and out, right? That was another piece of community feedback we got. Yeah. You might be halfway through a practice session and, I don't know, maybe you really want a packet of crisps and pausing it isn't enough and you want to sit and have a packet of crisps and not play the game for a while, and then you can do that and you can jump back in. Yeah, and I think that's really nice. And visor cam, I know, every time visor cam comes back up, I have to keep looking back at the screen because I just really like it. We've already lost position here to Verstappen. I think it's fair to say that Verstappen is not in the same battle as us in this race, or potentially any in my career as a team principal at this rate. But yeah, we're pushing those tyres again because, quite frankly, I cannot handle the fact that I am battling this Alpine. I want to be ahead of this Alpine. And it's not happening. So
while we have a moment and we're watching you, battle it out and slowly but surely lose places.
Thanks, Bruce. You can play next time.
So far. I would like to take advantage of, especially Lloyd, your expertise and knowledge on the series. For anyone who's joining us on Twitch and hasn't played the previous version of the game, could you just give us a little overview of what F1 Manager is about, what role the player takes on, and the kinds of things they will manage and do for their teams?
Yeah, so it's obviously, the clue's in the name, it's a management title, so you essentially take on the role of a team principal for a Formula One team. You can take that role for any of the real-world Formula One teams for the 2023 season. And you can basically play through on all of the 2023 circuits, and you can manage the team both on and off the circuit. So obviously we're looking at on-circuit action at the moment, currently in a separate mode, but when you're in career mode, for example, you will manage that team from start to finish, and you can essentially take on not only the circuit stuff but also back at the HQ, things like car development, driver development, even things like your you can manage what the pit crew do of a morning, of an afternoon, and that's something we've added in this one. And it's just making sure that we've got everything as real as possible and giving you the details you want, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, you really can get down into the, I don't want to call them minutiae, but all of the details and really every element of managing a team. I'm actually keen to ask you about the development of car parts in particular, because I know that's changed somewhat for this season as well. What can you tell me about that, which is new?
So the car park development, so not only have we made it a little bit more accessible in terms of how you utilise it, and obviously that's not visible here, but players will see that when they see the screens. But you've also now got the idea of developing parts based on their durability. So you've got various options available to you for that. So you can essentially set it to be more durable, which is great, but it will have slightly lower performance. But it just means it will last that little bit longer. It's mostly down to the weight. To make it more durable, it's a little bit heavier. And what that also means is it's less likely to fail on parts inspection. So we have a system that after the races, they'll come along and inspect your parts, and if they're not quite up to scratch, there's a chance they'll fail. You'll then have to go away and either, if you haven't, build new ones, but have them available in your factory, in your warehouse, or just fit them if you've got them available. Smart managers will have, smart team principals will have already developed those extra parts and have plenty of stock available, and so they'll be able to just switch them out. Or in some cases, you might use that as a chance to research something new for the future. You make it a little bit more durable if you don't want to keep running into that same problem. And yeah, it just means you've got a little bit more to think about.
Sure, just an extra consideration to bear in mind when you're developing.
Right. So, as you guys were talking about that, the astute viewers among you may have noticed that my pit stop with Leclerc there has happened. That's why Leclerc is now dropped to 13th. We're on a nice set of hard tyres, which are coming up to temperature, as you can see. What a beautiful segue, previous me. Thank you so much. So those tyres are a little bit cold right now. I'm pushing to heat them up a little bit. That's my strategy anyway. I hope it works. However, there was something that popped up there that I wanted to touch on a little bit. When we came into the pit stop, it popped up at the end of my pit stop and it said fastest pit stop, 10th, and then popped up to second, telling me that I had the second fastest pit stop. Can you allude a little bit as to what that might mean, Lloyd?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously you can read into that. You see that it's the fastest pit stop awards.
Yeah, right.
That's something we've implemented. So obviously there's an extra bit of incentive there to keep training your pit crew to the right level. You can, if you really want to, just make them focus on pure speed.
Okay.
If you want to do that, that's fine. You might be able to get that award.
There's a bit of extra, there's a bit of extra reward on the line for that, isn't there?
Increases the chance that they'll make mistakes. So they might be fast, but then every so often they might struggle to get a wheel off.
Yes.
So it's a bit of a balance there. So there's been certain times when I've been playing the game where I've just gone, right, hit the gym, the full month, and then by the time it gets to a race day, they're just absolutely exhausted. But you can do that if you really want to.
This is it, yeah. So this leans into our the new kind of key staff member for 2023,
yes,
the sporting director. So yeah, we now have the sporting director role in the game, which is effectively responsible for. It's a bit of a. It sounds like a very broad role, doesn't it? But they are responsible for kind of all the trackside operations at the race weekend. So your sporting director is going to be responsible effectively for preparing your pit crew and sorting out their training. So we're going to have a deeper system for training regimes for pit crew in the game this time on a monthly basis, where you can go in. I mean, you can customize it. You can have a balanced approach, similar to how we've got with the driver development. The car park development, where you can choose balanced or focuses. Yeah. There's a similar thing where you can focus your pit crew on various areas, like you said. And yeah, if they're too tired and you burn them out, then they're going to be more likely to make a mistake or be slow. And you're actually going to see those mistakes pan out, and that's going to affect your chances of a fastest pit stop win, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a balancing act, right? So obviously pit crew development itself is nothing new. It's something we've done in the game before, but it's the extra depth you've got now. And
exactly.
It's just adding in all those extra little bits that you've really got to think about, because as we've said, you can have things like pit stop mistakes. There's quite a variety of those that can go wrong as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a case of the wheels coming off. You can also mess up in other ways. But yeah, it is just sort of tying it all together, and the new staff member also ties into that, because they've got their own development stats as well and development processes, which also tie into it quite closely.
So here's me setting up my next pit stop. I ignored our engineer saying that we were in the pit window, just so I could set it up myself for the next lap. I kind of wanted to hold out to see if I could gamble on a safety car, but we're on lap 25. My tyres are at 43%. They could still go a little bit longer, but at this point I was thinking, can I hold this position for longer, or is everyone else going to pit around me and am I going to be in trouble? So I think actually my pit stop with signs ended up being pretty good, but we're going to get to that here. You can see me speeding through these options here a little bit just to see where we are. Here we go. Okay, I'm in the pit. And we'll see how this pans out for me. I think this ends up being okay, because you can see Ocon behind is 18 seconds behind me, so I think I only lose the position to Alonso briefly there. There we go, look, a 2-second pit stop, which comes out to being, I think, fairly fast.
Yeah, 2 seconds, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd say that. There you go, look, so we were previously 18th, because we hadn't actually done one. 6th there, that was the 6th fastest stop.
Is that acceptable, Mr. Team Principal?
Do you know what? We'll see. We'll see. We are checking, I think, is the official Ferrari response. Yeah, there we go. Straight back out, pushing the tyres again because I want to get those heated up a little bit. We'll see if that actually does anything for me. I'm conscious that I'm chasing down a very, very, not aggressive Alonso, but what a world Alonso is in right now. I'm a big fan of the underdog. I've always said this with Formula One. I don't particularly support any driver or any team. I just always want the person who isn't winning to win. That's my goal, right? There's a lot of people that aren't winning F1, I know, but I like the idea of the person that's kind of, biting at the heels of the winners. And I'm really excited for Alonso to potentially be that person. I think that's very, very cool. And he is in this race, he's right there, ready to go. As you can see here as well, I'm looking at our driver confidence, which is a lovely little segue. This is something that we'll be touching on a little bit more in the race moment that we show a little bit later. But driver confidence is a new addition. We've got a safety car as well. I knew this would happen. This is why I thought I'd wait. And then 2 laps later, I think it's not even 2 laps later, the safety car happens. Whilst this safety car plays out, can we have a little info on what driver confidence is and how that works for 2023?
Driver confidence is a new feature for 2023 in all your races. It will ebb and flow throughout the race, and depending on what happens, getting an overtake will boost your driver's confidence. Being overtaken, obviously will reduce it, and there's a lot of similar things as well. Just battling in general, like if you're successfully defending from someone, that's going to boost their confidence as well, build them up. So you can track it as we saw in that previous screen. It ties into the practice sessions as well, so that will set kind of their base confidence for the weekend, how well you've set the car up, whether they got acclimatised to the circuit, if they're kind of comfortable with the parts on the car, and then that will build through qualifying and the race. The outcome of it will kind of affect how well the driver performs. If they're really confident, they're going to perform effectively like being in form, right? They're going to do really well, kind of like Alonso has been this year, right?
Yeah.
He's very confident. Or obviously the other way, they could underperform. It also affects the chance of incidents as well. So drivers who are feeling really confident, they're less likely to make mistakes, less likely to have crashes. And again, conversely, if they're not very confident, they'll make more or potentially make more. And it ties in as well with some of the new tactics we've added as well,
yes,
which live in that same menu you're looking at a minute ago, around kind of overtaking and defending. And these kind of, I think we quite often describe them as quite kind of like risk management. You can tell the driver to be more aggressive overtakes, which means they're more likely to get the job done, but also you're increasing that risk that they're going to have a collision with the other car, and the same with when they're defending as well. Or you can, again, conversely tell them to be less risky, they're more likely to get past or less likely to overtake, but they're being a bit safer there. And that plays with the confidence in that, obviously, if you've got a driver who's really confident, you can kind of take more risks because they're feeling confident, they're less likely to make mistakes, they're performing better, so you can take more risks, which means they're going to build more confidence. And then you get an interesting choice on the other side, where if you've got a driver who's not very confident, you want them to make passes to rebuild that confidence or to build some confidence and to push to go quicker. But that's a risk, right? Because they're not feeling confident. So if you're telling them to take risks, they're more likely to make mistakes. But so there's a bit of a risk reward there, and how you manage those situations and what you, I guess, like as a principle, right, feel is the right way to do that. Do you be conservative? Maybe put them on some fresh tyres so they can go out and set some better laps to build it that way, or go aggressive, take the risk, which obviously potentially has a bigger reward as well. It does play into the kind of more experienced drivers as well, potentially being a bit more, they're kind of less likely to be unconfident and things like that. So some of your team management from before the races will play into it as well.
Yes.
For their kind of, the states of how drivers react to things. So
I really love this. It feels like it adds a new angle of management in terms of understanding, to an extent, the psychology of your drivers.
Yeah.
Which is really nice to be able to simulate that You might even start making decisions like, if I want to build up my, say, second driver, I'm going to give them more time, I'm going to build up that confidence. And yeah, like you say, right down to the moments of, okay, do I decide to ask them to overtake or not, just based on how confident they are. That's a really nice level of detail.
Yeah, and it plays in with their engineer as well, which obviously, again, the engineer was a staff member in the previous game. You see them on the radio all the time in the races and stuff. But they play into the confidence too, because they're a really big part in real life of the driver's kind of mindset and managing that, right, and helping the driver, giving them the information they need, you know, telling them, and sometimes when they don't need information, right, because it might distract them, that sort of thing. So yeah, the engineer affects that, the relationship between the driver and the engineer, their affinity, which again was in the last game as well, but that plays into the kind of the confidence that you see in the game. So if they've got a good relationship, they'll trend towards better confidence. And there's also a new one of the performance attributes that the engineers have now called composure, which affects those fluctuations as well. So if you've got a really good engineer, your driver's going to get kind of more boosts from good events and kind of less. They'll kind of soften the blows of negative ones when they're conversing with the driver, and then the other way as well. If you've not got a great engineer, it affects it too. So yeah, we wanted to highlight that relationship as well, because it's such an important one in real life.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That is something that I think, you know, especially in the last couple of years, has been highlighted even further by, you know, with the way F1 push team radios and stuff like that now. Having that, you know, you often see, you know, drivers building up huge bonds with their engineers over time, and yeah, to have something that reflects that a little bit within the game, I think is really, really cool. And yeah, like you said, it kind of lets you get into that kind of the psychology of how people are thinking. And again, I lean heavily on the driver confidence system in, and here we are absolutely beefing it here with the Aston Martin. I knew this would happen. They were too close to me to begin with. So just to save a bit of time here, because these streams always run over, I changed my front wing. I had to change my front wing after that crash. And I also put on a pair of soft tyres just to try and wing it for 20 laps. I thought, yeah, fine. So we've got a pair of worn softs on as well, most importantly. So they're 74% worn already. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. And then there's also been a safety car on the restart, because I can't remember who it was, but somebody, as Leclerc says, "Mamma mia!" there was an accident on the restart. That first corner, which is again something that we've looked at, right? We've got a bit more first corner action coming for the game.
Yeah. So there's the way that's been implemented is essentially the cars will now use a lot more of the track width. So you'll see them pushing a little bit more over the curbs. They'll be able to, you know, have more battles through corners and things. And alongside that, obviously, there's a chance there'll be a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact in the corners. And obviously, the time you most see that is on the first corner.
Yeah.
Not necessarily at every circuit, but there's some circuits that are especially bad for it.
Yeah.
As I'm sure we're all aware.
Yeah, and yeah, like, you know, we're on a tight street circuit here. I'm not surprised there was a bit of chaos on the restart. Maybe those Aston Martins are a little bit too confident. Maybe their driver confidence got a little bit too high, and they got a bit too cocky maybe. But we've seen them both now out, which has put me in a really nice position here. I don't deserve to be in this position at all. I've been fed this P3 and P5 currently, but the safety car has bunched everybody back up after the Aston Martin accident, and yeah, DRS is back. We're in the final 16 laps here. I can't even remember what my final positions were in this, you know.
I was going to say, your confidence must be pretty high at the moment.
It is, but I remember that I did this myself, and I've got a feeling that I don't end where I am right now. But we'll see how it goes. Again, those soft tyres are, you know, I'm not being afraid to push them. And I do have damage on Leclerc's car from the crash with the Aston Martin, and I could only repair the front wing, of course. So, yeah, obviously Leclerc after that crash, probably not 100% happy. I'm a little bit concerned that there might be a bit more damage to the car, so I've told him to avoid any high-risk curbs just to try and chill things out a little bit. There is a little bit of damage there that we're going to have to look at, and that is kind of a nice inadvertent segue into the idea of aerodynamic parts and durability. Can we shed a little bit of light on that area that we've looked at?
Yeah, so obviously in this one here you've got these parts that you need to replace, and if essentially you, as I said earlier, you balance it right based on what you want. Do you want the performance or do you want the durability? Now in some cases you might want to develop both, and you can do that. If you want to, you know, fit some parts to your car that are high performance but maybe a bit less durable, you can do that. try it out for a few races, see how it goes. It might not work in your favour, and obviously then you've got the backups. Smart management will come into it. The part management is obviously very important for the cars during the weekend.
When might you be incentivised to focus more on durability than performance, say? Would that be relative to managing things like your cost cap, or...?
Yeah, basically. Obviously, if you're struggling with money, you're not going to have all the budget to keep developing parts and then upgrading your manufacturing facilities in order to build those parts. So you might want to sort of pull back a little bit and go, well, I'll make them more durable. I'll focus on developing other areas, so whether that be upgrading things like your racing simulator or your visitor centre to get more income. There's so many things you can balance it against. And let's not forget, you can also do research for future seasons as well. So you might want to just say focus on durable parts for this season, get to the end of the season, do as well as you can, and then next season, develop for the future, like Haas did a few years ago. So you can also take that approach to it.
And the cost cap in general is, again, something that we've sort of looked at as well, right? So kind of rebalance that a little bit. Again, a bit of community feedback was that it maybe wasn't as effective. So we've looked at that, right?
Yeah, so there's been multiple rebalances going. I'm not going to go into like crazy amounts of detail.
No, of course.
Because obviously there's still, I will say as well, there's still balancing ongoing.
As always.
Work in progress.
We've got our little work in progress there.
So that has been rebalanced to make it more realistic, let's say. It's not going to be a case of just throwing money at absolutely everything and seeing what sticks. You just have to be very careful with it. And I've noticed this myself in my playthroughs. I essentially had to be very careful with which parts I was developing, and may have pushed it a little bit too far. But
yes,
that's the risk you take, right?
Yeah, it is, exactly. And again, I think all of these little things will add up to make it a bigger challenge, right? That's the dream, is that we want it to be a bit more of a challenge for people as well. I certainly have noticed that I am not as good as this game as I was last year. That might just be me. I am very much send it and see what happens kind of person, and that worked really well for me on our last streams, because it was always a case of me just being like, yeah, we'll just wait for a safety car and we'll see what happens. And that's always worked quite well, but so far not working.
Well, what you've just said there actually touches quite nicely on some comments I saw a few minutes ago, talking about difficulty compared to last season's game. So what were your thoughts on that going into developing this game?
So obviously community feedback is something that we do read frequently and take on board, and it's certainly something that we looked at, and there were several areas which were sort of key to that, and we looked at it and across the board made different changes to approach. So first of all, it is the cost cap one. That is something that we needed to adjust slightly, but it's also how the other teams make progress as well. So there's various bits that go into this, including other teams developing their cars in certain ways, and also on track. So that's something that will basically end up with more battles, essentially. The AI teams can now push much harder.
Sure.
They're a lot smarter in terms of the strategies they choose. They don't necessarily just choose a strategy and stick to it. They will react to ongoing track action, and they're constantly hunting for the best pit stop strategy as well. So it's not just a case of them giving you better battles with things like ERS, DRS, and the pushing their tyres, for example, but it's also how they handle the on-track action and react to it in their overall strategies as a team.
Sure.
It's not just a case of them going out and racing around the circuit. They will give you a battle, and I've found this myself in my playthroughs. I've come across certain teams where I've gone, I can't quite beat them. I just don't have the car for it.
Yeah, and I'm here struggling on these tyres because I've made my bed and I'm now lying in it. I have. You can see Sainz's tyres are absolutely red hot. We've had the safety cars, we've had the restarts and stuff, so I have, I'm down to, look, I've got like 7 kilograms of fuel left here. So we're burning as much fuel as possible. We're pedaled to the floor. We're not Lyco at all. Sorry, we're not lifting and coasting. I'm copying engineers. Look at me. I think I'm an engineer and a team principal. Leclerc's tyres are on the absolute limit here as well. But we've got a couple of laps left, so I just thought, let's just go for it. Let's just see what happens. Maybe somebody else will have a mistake and we can capitalise on it. But I think we're pretty much set on how I ended up finishing this race, which honestly isn't so bad. I can't. It was. I can't remember the exact specifics of where they finished in the real race, But with Race Replay, you'll have a summary page at the end that shows, you know, your points versus the real result, right?
Yes, so yeah, you'll see your position compared to where that driver finished in real life, and then, as you say, yeah, the points that each driver scored and the points that you as a principal scored compared to the real one. You can see it in the race as well, so the tick in the top right, the objective, showing that you are currently beating what Ferrari achieved in real life, so that's what that's reflecting. Yeah, I think 5th and 7th from memory is where they finished, I feel like, something like that. So yeah, you'll get a summary of that after the race when it finishes in the race replay mode, and yeah, you can track it. You can track it in more detail from the data view as well if you want to remind yourself the challenge.
Yeah.
What result would you be happy with? 1 position gain from each driver?
I would, yeah, I would, to be honest. That's kind of how I look at it. That's me personally, anyway. I went into this thinking I could beat the Alpines. As you can see, I am not beating the Alpines on the last lap here. It's been a bit of a battle with them, and a bit of a battle with the Haas as well. You know, I came into this again. You kind of come in. You know, I haven't personally done anything to nurture these drivers or this team. I've just jumped in as it is, and yeah, I'm okay with the result. I didn't DNF. A lot of people did, and I didn't. So I was happy that I managed to survive. Especially managed to get a car out of the accident that we had with the Aston Martin. I was quite pleased to walk away from that fairly unscathed, and still have both cars in, because that's what it's all about, is keeping those points, right?
Yes, we're coming to the last lap now, and yeah, you've got that healthy gap, so.
Yeah, I think we end up settling about here. Actually, I think this is it. This is why I'm like,
Wait,
yeah, okay.
Did you just? No, I was imagining that you didn't lose a place for Leclerc on the last lap, did you?
No, I don't think so. I think I finished 7th.
Close.
Yeah, it's incredibly close.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wrackingly close. It's very much. This is why I end up doing the last couple of laps on 2 times speed, because I'm just like, no, let's just get it done. I just need to. Nothing will happen if I press 2 times, right? Even though I know full well it's going to give me less time to react to something, and I stopped paying attention to the intervals. But yeah, there we go. Over the line. Yeah, we'll leave the fact that we've got a 4th and a 7th there, which, you know, again, I think it's okay. Like I said, you'll have a proper summary page on this. I think I skipped through this, but there will be a proper summary page, like we said, where you'll get your points and all of that kind of thing for the actual race, the race moment, the race replay. Sorry.
I know there are going to be starting grids where you finish and all you've done is reverse the position of your own team.
Yeah, that's almost certainly going to happen. Do you know what though? Considering some of the streams that I've done with F1 Manager 22, having both drivers in the top 10 is actually a fairly good result for anyone that's watched these streams before. Yeah, we've done a good job there. But we're going to dive into a race moment next. We'll take a quick break in a minute, where we're going to show you our first new video, actually, in a feature focus series. So if you followed the previous game, and if you haven't followed the previous game, we have a series called Feature Focus, where we take a little bit of a closer look at some of the features that are coming to the new game.